My name is Sheila Corona. Welcome to the Jeshua Channelings by Pamela Kribbe. And if you are following along with me in the book, which I highly recommend, I'm on page 7. If you are following along online at jeshua.net, that I am at Who is Jesus? I am the one who has been among you and who you have come to know as Jesus. I am not, I wanted to make sure I'm recording there. I am not the Jesus of your church tradition or the Jesus of your religious writings. I am Jeshua ben Joseph. I have lived as a man of flesh and blood. I did reach Christ consciousness before you, but I was supported in this by powers which are beyond your imagination at present. Now, I highlighted this next bit. My coming was a cosmic event. I made myself available for this. And I feel like that's a true statement right there. I feel like that is exactly what we have happening on the planet right now. The second coming, only it's spread out over way more of us this time around. And I think if you follow along, you'll find out why this is. It wasn't easy. I did not succeed in my endeavors to pass on to people the immensity of God's love. There was much misunderstanding. I came too early, but someone had to come. My coming was like throwing a stone in a large fish pond. All the fish flee, and the stone sinks into the deep. There are ripples noticeable long afterwards, though. One might say that the kind of consciousness I wished to convey did its work underground after that. On the surface of the pool, there were constant ruffles. Well intended but misguided interpretations rose to meet and fight each other in my name. The ones who were touched by my energy, moved by the impulse of the Christ energy, could not really integrate it with their physiological, psychological, physical reality. It has taken a long time before Christ consciousness could really set foot on earth. But now the time has come, and I have returned and speak through many, through all and to everyone who wants to hear me and who has come to understand me from the quietness of their hearts. Do not preach, and I do not judge. My sincerest hope is to speak to you of the vast and unfailing presence of love accessible to you at any time. I am part of a much larger consciousness, a greater entity, but I, Jeshua, am the incarnated part of that entity or field of consciousness. I do not like the name Jesus much, for it has become so caught up with a distorted version of what I stand for. Jesus is owned by the church traditions and authorities. He has been molded to fit the interests of the church patriarchs for centuries, so much so that the prevailing image of Jesus is now so far removed from what I represent that it would truly please me if you could just let it go and release me from that heritage. I am Jeshua, man of flesh and blood. I am your friend and brother. I am familiar with being human in every way. I am teacher and friend. Do not fear me. Embrace me like you'd embrace one of your kin. We are family. And the next chapter is Jeshua, Jesus, and Christ. The Christ energy that I came to offer you stems from a collective energy that has gone beyond the world of duality. This means that it recognizes the opposites of good and bad, light and dark, giving and taking as the aspects of one and the same energy. Living from the reality of Christ consciousness means that there is no struggle with anything. There is a complete acceptance of reality. This absence of struggle or resistance is its main characteristic. Since Christ, or the Christ energy, recognizes the extremes of all thoughts, feelings, and actions as the manifestations of the one divine energy, there can be no duality, no judgment in the way, quote, he, the Christed energy, experiences reality. I highlighted that entire paragraph because I feel that with every bit of me. This was a huge validation for me in regards to that is the only if unconditional love truly exists, and that's what God is, then this makes perfect sense to me. Let's give an example here. When the Christ in you watches an armed conflict between people, her heart weeps for the fate of the beaten one, but she does not judge. She feels the pain and humiliation with each blow, and her heart is filled with compassion, but she does not judge. She watches the offender, the one with the gun, the one who has power, who inflicts pain, and she feels the hatred and bitterness inside of him, and her heart grieves, but she does not judge. The heart of Christ embraces the whole spectacle with deeply felt compassion, but without judgment, for she recognizes all aspects as experiences she has gone through herself. She herself has lived out all of these roles of offender and victim, of master and slave. And she has come to the understanding that she is neither of them, but that which underlies both. The Christ energy has passed through all the energies of duality. It identified itself now with the dark, then with the light, but through it all, something remained the same. And when she realized this sameness underlying all her experiences, her consciousness obtained a new kind of unity. It was Christed. The Christed energy was the energy I came to offer you. Who I was is quite difficult to explain. You have to pardon me. A little butterfly PT on the subject to keep the pipes warm. Little cold here today. I will try to do so who I was is quite difficult to explain. I will try to do so by distinguishing between three identities: Jeshua, Jesus, and Christ. I, the one who is now speaking, am Jeshua. I was the human being who carried the Christ energy in my incarnation on earth. This energy may also be called Christ. And I'm going to share with you a little aside. In our group, I said, and I still feel very much, I recognize Jeshua for me as the physical vessel ego, the personality. This is what I equate it to for myself. It is that which would call itself Sheila. But Sheila is a multidimensional being, and Sheila does now know that, which my ego's name is Smarmy. But you know, she Smarmy actually knows that now as well. So the one who is now, oh yeah, called Christ. Jesus, in my terminology, is the name for the godlike man who was who the godlike man who was the result of the infusion of Christ energy into the physical and psychological reality of Jesus. This Christ energy was poured into Jeshua from spheres of light, which are, from your standpoint, located in your future. Jesus was the man who performed miracles and brought forth prophecies. Jesus was an emissary from the spheres of light incarnated in me. In fact, he was my future self. And so here, for me, it kind of feels similar to what some people have described as a walk in, a larger portion of themselves. I now recognize that as being, you know, something pulled forward from the future. And because, boy, this has been a big puzzle piece, this book right here. In fact, he was my future self. Jesus was, from my perspective, as the man Jeshua living on earth, my future self, who had become one with the Christ energy, because the Christ in him was clearly present and visible to many people around him. He appeared to them as divine. Now, there will be those of you who will hear this and will have noticed, as you rise your vibration and your Christed energy comes through your vessel more and more, that people tend to react quite differently. At least they do to me. And I've witnessed this on many occasions, not just me, but others as well. The presence, the amount of presence that we pull into the physical vessel is what I feel is being spoken of here. I, Jeshua, was a man of flesh and blood. The unique and to some extent artificial aspect of the Jesus construction was that I received his/my Christed self from the future. I did not become Christed on the basis of my past or the experiences of my past. I did not achieve enlightenment in the natural way, but by means of an intervention from outside, so to speak, by an infusion of Christ energy from the future. I had agreed to play this role before I began this lifetime. I agreed to be, quote, overshadowed by the Jesus presence as an act of service, and also because of a deeply felt longing to get to know the reality of my deepest potential. You see, that speaks to what I have always felt. Puzzle pieces I've collected over the last few years. It goes specifically to that we design our experiences here to be very specific, no matter what we think. And I wrote the word multidimensional there too, because that's how you discover your multidimensional portions of yourself. This is what's being described here. Jesus, my future self from the spheres of light, had become one with the Christ energy, yet he did not represent the entire energy. of Christ here on earth. For this energy encompasses more than Jesus. He is one part or cell of it. And that's what I say. The second coming is way bigger. Everybody's looking for this, for him to come through the clouds, but it's coming through the clouds of you. Yeah, you are the cloudy one. As soon as you recognize that you are the one you've been waiting for, it comes through the clouds and comes right through. It's the divinity, the second coming of your own divinity. And that's what Christ, I feel, was trying to share. And I highlighted this next part too. Christ, or the Christ energy, it is more like an energy field than a personal entity. I do feel that's a true statement too. Is a collective energy which has many aspects, or quote cells, which are cooperating in such a way that they function as one organism. All cells make a unique contribution to the whole and experience themselves as individuals while being a part of the whole as well. This to me speaks to we are all one and yet separate as well. That is, our personality egos are the only thing that separates us, are the experiences we've had in our physical vessels. One might call these several aspects of the Christ energy angels or archangels. It is the hallmark of angels that they have a sense of individuality, as well as a high degree of selflessness, which allows them to feel one with the collective energies and be joyful in their service. The notion of archangels is elucidated in the last chapter of the Lightworker series, Your Light Self. Jesus' mission on earth. Jesus was an energy from the future who came to earth to bring illumination and knowledge to humanity. He came from another world or even dimension, and he brought with him the elevated energy of his reality. His awareness of his own greater self remained intact while he incarnated on earth because of his presence in me, Jeshua. I could easily realize the flexibility of material laws and perform miracles. The reason why the Jesus/Jeshua personality came to earth was to create an opening or a doorway to a different state of consciousness. I wanted to set an example of the possibilities that are available to each human being. In the spheres of light where Jesus came from, it was felt that the earth was going in a direction that would end up in great darkness and self-alienation for the souls involved in the planet, in the earth experiment. It was decided that a powerful impetus for change was going to be given, which would clearly show human beings the choices available to them. And that's in italics, and I think it's very important. We are only limited by our belief systems. I come to feel that is a true statement right there. By sending the energy personality of Jesus, we wanted to hold up a mirror to human beings and remind them of their own divine origin and the dormant potentials they carried within, the potentials for peace, freedom, and mastership over yourself. Every human being is the master of their own reality. You are creating your own reality all the time. I have said that. I cannot tell you how validating that felt to me to hear it in this book, too. You are able to let go of a miserable or unsatisfying reality and allow light to enter and transform your creation. You are your own master, but you tend to give your power away to outside authorities who claim to know the truth and to want the best for you. Now, this this was published in 2007. We are now in 2024. Ah, can you not see that that is exactly what's up for everybody on the planet at this moment? Because it sure looks that way to me. This happens in politics, medicine, education, etc. Also, your quote, entertainment industry is full of false images about happiness, success, and beauty, which serve no one except the ones who construct them. Have you ever thought about how much money is spent just creating images? In the media, in newspapers, in movies, on radio, in television, on the internet, images are spread all the time. Where do these images come from? Why are they here? Why are they there? Who designs them? Images are a means of exerting power over people. Images can make people subservient to and disconnected from their true needs without the use of physical force or violence. And all I got to do is point to 2020 to show you that's a true statement right there. Images can make people voluntarily give away their own power and self worth. I'm doing this for you. I'm making my own health suffer for you. They delude you in a way, in such a way that you need not be violently forced into anything. You will accept the values portrayed by the image as your own and act accordingly. This is what we would call invisible mind control, and it is rampant among your, quote, free Western societies. The function of light is primarily to bring clarity, awareness, and transparency to the invisible structures of thought and feeling that shape your life. Light is the opposite of mind control. Where light enters a reality, it breaks the bonds of mere power and authority and breaks down the hierarchies based on them. And think about that for just a moment. And what is going on the planet right now? Even asking questions, even trying to have conversations about things. Folks try to shut that down, right? Very interesting what this is saying here. It holds misuse of power up to the light, and it frees people from delusions and illusions that take away their power for self-determination. Jesus was a threat to the ruling order at the time he lived by what he told people and simply by what he radiated. He caused structures of power to be seen for what they truly are or were. And make no mistake, that is what is happening right now. All this derangement syndrome that people seem to have is a reaction to the radiating of what is inside of those beings, in my view. Because it just doesn't explain. None of what I've heard explains the vitriol I've seen. This was unbearable and unacceptable for the existing hierarchy. And don't that feel like it's the same right now? The role of light worker, which Jesus took upon him, was heavy, especially for me, Jeshua, the human being, who agreed to carry this intense, bright energy in my lifetime. I, Jeshua, was almost overshadowed by the force of Jesus' presence, the presence of my future self. Although it filled me with great insights, love, and inspiration, it was quite a challenge physically to carry and or hold his energy. I could not really integrate his energy into my physical being. The cells in my body were not quite ready for it. So, on a physical level, my body got exhausted from carrying these intense energies of light. And anyone who's pulling that light into themselves now, like myself, will attest to the same thing. Apart from the physical aspect, there was also a psychological burden to carrying the Christ energy. I found it very hard to watch the nature of the Christ energy being frequently misunderstood. This is something that I feel as well, even by my closest friends or quote disciples. And as we go on here, you will understand why. As the human being that I was, I sometimes became desperate and doubted the value of the journey I undertook. I felt that the world was not ready for the Christ energy. I felt that its essence was not recognized. Jesus was truly a pioneer in his time. There have been times when I've wondered that same thing about this time now. Results of Jesus coming to earth. By the coming of Jesus to earth, a seed was planted. It was the seed of the Christ energy. People were moved by what I said and did, and unconsciously, at the soul level, they did recognize the Christ energy. Deep within their souls, a memory was stirred. Something was touched and set in motion. At the surface, on the level of what can be seen and felt in the physical world, my coming created much commotion. By virtue of the law of duality, the powerful infusion of light creates a powerful reaction from the dark. This is just a matter of logic. Light is confronting. It wants to break structures of power and set the imprisoned energies free. Darkness is the energy that wants to suppress and control. So these two energies have opposing interests. Where one gains in power, the other will strike back to defend itself and regain balance. Thus, my coming to earth also initiated much struggle and violence as a counter violence as a counter reaction to the light I came to spread. The persecution of my followers, the early Christians, is one example of this violent counter reaction. But the Christians themselves, the founders of the church, did not shun violence either in their eagerness to spread my teachings. Think of the Crusades and the Inquisition. In the name of Christ, the most barbaric deeds of darkness have been performed by Christians as well as by non-Christians. The masters of light who decided to send me as an emissary to earth were aware of the fact that the intense and unprecedented energy of Jesus might invoke strong reactions of darkness. Jesus penetrated the reality of earth like a comet. It was a kind of emergency measure from the spheres of light, from energies which were deeply concerned with earth and its inhabitants. It was an ultimate attempt to divert the direction in which the earth was heading, a way of interrupting cycles of ignorance and destruction which kept on repeating themselves. And that's part of the Sophia myth, you know. The early Gnostic Christians spoke in regards to humanity having been seeded many times before and ended in destruction. The results were ambiguous. On the one hand, the light of Jesus invoked much darkness by way of counter-reaction. On the other hand, the seed of the Christ consciousness was planted in the hearts of a number of people. An important reason for my coming was to awaken the light worker souls on earth. And we're going to be seeing the explanation of what a light worker is here very shortly. They would be most sensitive and receptive of my energy, although many had become lost in the density and darkness of the earth plane as well. Light workers are, in fact, emissaries of light with the same mission as Jesus. Hence why several feel they are Jesus. I've met them. I've met a few, right? And they are, in many ways, they are. It's the same energy. That's why we interpret it a little differently, perhaps, but we all are part of that exact same energy. We all are. The difference is that their incarnation in a physical body, they are less connected to their wider divine self than I was. They are more subject to the karmic burdens and illusions of the earth plane, and dare I say, the programming and conditioning as well. They are more bound to the past. With the incarnation of Jesus, something special was occurring. Jesus did not carry any karmic burdens from the past, and he could therefore more easily keep in touch with his divinity. He was here in a somewhat artificial way, a presence from the future, being here and there at the same time. The consciousness of the beings of light, which jointly decided to insert the energy of Jesus into earth reality at that time, was not perfect and all-knowing. Every conscious being is in the process of developing and understanding itself all the time. Among humans, there is a persistent belief that everything is predestined by some divine plan. Behind this belief is the notion of a dominant, omniscient God. This notion is false. There is no predestination by an outside force. There are only probabilities, which are the result of inner choices you yourself make. My coming to Earth was based on a decision made by a collective energy of light, of which Jesus was a part. It was a choice that involved risks and an unpredictable outcome. The collective energy of light, the collective energy of light I am speaking of is an angelic realm that is deeply connected to humanity and earth because it helped to create humans and the earth. Actually, you are part of them and not separate from them at all. But we are now speaking multidimensionally on a level of consciousness that is outside of your linear framework of time. In another dimension or framework of time, you are these angels that make up the spheres of light from which Jesus descended to earth. we're going to see again an in-depth about what the light self is. It says for an in-depth explanation of multidimensionality and our angelic nature. You, light workers, are much more interconnected with, quote, the Jesus event, this infusion of Christ's energy on earth, than you suppose. It was to some extent a collective endeavor to which you all contributed, and of which I, Jeshua, was the visible, physical representative. My message was that the Christ energy is present in all human beings as a seed. When you look up to me as some kind of authority, you have misunderstood my message. I wished and still wish to invite you to believe in yourself, to find the truth within your own heart, and not to believe in any authority outside of you. Ironically, the official Christian religion has placed me outside of your reality as an authority figure to worship and obey. This is quite the opposite of what I had intended. I intended to show you that you can be a living Christ yourself. I now ask you to recognize the Christ within and to return my humanness to me. I am Jeshua, man of flesh and blood, and truly a friend and brother to you all. Wow. Well, that's it for this edition. I will be back with part 1, the Lightworker series. And I'm not sure how much we'll get through in part 1, but I will just continue to record until I feel like I'm done, and we'll get them out as soon as possible. I hope that you will move towards that which brings you joy in each moment that presents itself to you, as that is your path. You will find something there for you, I feel. Till we meet again, be well, my friends.